Hello and welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus, where we talk about complex, supernatural, types of topics related especially to our destinies. When we shake off the body we're in right now, we experience our physical demise and what happens to our essence. Where do we go? What other worlds do we go to? These kinds of crazy subjects that affect everybody. And tonight I want to talk about a question from somebody who actually made a request to make a video about this, and it concerns the out-of-body experience that we talk about in this channel. And there's a lot of videos about the OBEs if you go back through the archives of this channel, but specifically it concerns how and why when you go out of body or you have the out-of-body experience, you feel the energy shift, you rise up out of your body. The environment often looks different, why things are often rearranged. And this was actually related to somebody on the group who was posting a video by the arc skeptic James Randi, who was surprisingly talking about how he had an out-of-body experience and dismissed it as a dream because the environment looked different. Very surprising, it makes me wonder, if somebody like Randy maybe has had more of these experiences than he's willing to admit, and part of his whole posturing is like a psychological hang-up because he's unwilling to admit that something like this could be real because it's too good to be true, and he was disappointed a lot as a child or some complicated mess like that. I think he'll know. I think he's like 150 years old now, so I think he'll know soon enough once he experiences bodily, I can't say the D word because YouTube might demonetize me, once he experiences the bodily end, the end of his earthly body. So this is a good question because a lot of people who do the out-of-body stuff, they report this, and they report that they feel themselves leave their body, but then they look around and things are moved differently inside the room. So they used to have a bureau there, now it's here. They used to have a mosquito flying by here, now it's not there. No, I'm kidding. There's a mosquito in my room I just saw. I hate mosquitoes, and definitely need to send this mosquito to the afterlife at some point. Come here. Anyway, I'm in Belgrade, Serbia, actually. Summertime out here, it's definitely, you can get mosquitoes and things like that. So if anything, I'm fortunate if there's just one in my room. I was in Bosnia once, like 4 years ago, and it was like this horror movie. The window would have like 400 mosquitoes all like pecking at the glass trying to get in, like huge ones too. It's crazy. So anyway, to get back on topic about the out-of-body experience, so why do things look different? Why would the bureau be different? Why would the room look differently? And oftentimes it's just a brief glimpse at something like this before you get thrown back into your body. So there's a few reasons for this. Before I get into those reasons, real quick, if you haven't done so yet, please go down and hit that subscribe button if you like these kinds of long-form podcast-style videos. I don't have time usually to do big editing processes. I think that the content, the value comes from the lecture and what I'm talking about or who I'm interviewing. But if you like listening to these conversations, and again, please subscribe, helps keep the channel going when you do that, and the notification bell, or else YouTube will never let you know when a new video comes out. So you have to hit that notification bell also. And by the way, usually I don't talk this quietly, but I'm in a hostel, still traveling like I always do, and I'm trying not to wake up all my neighbors in the rooms next to me. The walls are kind of thin, and we have this cranky old Serbian guy who... Did I get the mosquito? No. We have this cranky old Serbian guy who owns the place, and he's probably going to come and knock on my door and tell me to shut the F up if I talk too loudly. So I have to keep the pitch down. All right. Anyway, to get back on point. So why does this happen? Why do people have these OBEs and then the environment changes? Well, there's a couple of reasons for this. There's different theories. It's weird, but I have one particular theory, and it stands out because I've done a lot of out-of-body exploration, and I've determined, most importantly, that the place we find ourselves in when we go out of body successfully is what I call the near-Earth astral plane, which is also what we can call an aspect, an element of the afterlife, the actual place that we go when our bodies end, when we become deceased, when we are burned, cremated, whatever happens to us. This is the frequency, the wavelength that we often will switch to. Now, it's not always the case. Some people go to these exalted realms. Somebody was maybe extraterrestrial in their soul group, and then they pass away and they're surrounded by like long spindly aliens on some other planet floating around, and hyperdimensional and UFOs everywhere. I mean, maybe that can happen to you. There's all kinds of things that can happen to anybody. It's the multiverse. It's infinite in its scope. So a lot of different things can happen to people. But I think where a majority of people go is this other frequency that's basically wrapped around this planet and also mimics this planet in many ways. So through some process that I don't think anybody fully understands, the actual material from this world copies itself over to that side. And I don't know when or how it happens. So let's say you build a house. At what point will that house copy itself to that side? Does it happen automatically? Does it take some time for it to manifest? Or are we doing it through our higher selves? And so we build a house here, and then our higher self thinks, well, I'm going to build the same house on that side. If astral zoning laws allow me to do it, if there's nobody who doesn't already have a house right here, I'm going to try to build the same house on that side, so that I have a place to go to when I leave the earthly body, and then it'll be familiar to me. And it could be something as simple as that, because there's a lot of care and attention placed on this psychological factor of being in a familiar environment when we transition. Because we've learned, and as you can read my books, you can go through the channel, that our psychological state actually stays the same. This is part of how we grow as souls, is that we essentially stay the same as just before we crossed over. It's bad news for the Mick spirituality proponents who want to argue that we become instantly enlightened and we are immediately angels, and that we are free of all flaws, or it's pure love, pure positivity. All that bubblegum stuff is comforting to some people, but it doesn't line up with the reality of spirit communication, which is that we ultimately, the progress continues at the same pace. We are still ourselves, and we have infinity to reach some much, much higher level. So there's no hurry to get to the end point. So being that our psychology stays much the same, there's a lot of, tension placed upon the concept of keeping things familiar, not wanting to cause a sudden shock or something that could traumatize somebody. And what's more familiar than passing away and coming back to your same house again, right? That's the most familiar thing that can happen. When I began having out-of-body experiences, I found out that the most common place I appear in, and I still appear in, is the old house I grew up in that's been bulldozed. So that house is not even there anymore. But if I project, I'll appear in that house, and all the junk in that house is copied over, and there's a bunch more junk from other people who have lived in that house now, particularly me, living a parallel life, or as like my higher self, if you want to call it that, or by deceased family members. So it's actually really nice when I can see this place again and remember all this stuff I thought was lost is all still there. My old bed is still there, and I'm pretty sure once I kick the bucket, and hopefully that won't be for a long, long time, Although it could happen any day, it could be tomorrow. There's no it doesn't wait. It can strike us any day. Any day you can leave this world. Could happen an hour from now. Statistically, that's not likely, but it could. So I'm certain that I'm going to appear in that house. Now here's the thing. So when there is another house that's made on that side, it's in a different dimension. It's not like everything you do in this side is always going to be copied over. There's also a phenomenon that you might get random people living in your house, because guess what? Until you pass away and begin living in that house, it's just going to sit there, and the other side is not this perfect place where everything is controlled and monitored and regulated, right? So there's actual people, souls, wandering around just like here. Sometimes they're just freeloading, and you'll find strangers living in this replica house because they're just wandering the world and like, look, no one's living in here. Maybe I'll just go hang out in here for a while. Why not? And so I've also seen this going out of body. I've seen random people living like in the home back where I rented in Los Angeles. There'd be random people hanging out in there. Jürgen Zives talked about this in his books. Astral squatters, if you can believe it. So whether it's our higher selves living on that side, or whether it is our deceased family members and friends, or a mosquito. I don't think there's mosquitoes on the astral side, by the way. I've talked to my mom about this, and she said that the really low vibration, darker creatures like that kind of get nixed. Like the group collective consciousness does not want mosquitoes. So there could be like every other kind of insect, but then mosquitoes will just, bad luck for them. They'll get pushed out of that vibration or cease to exist entirely. She mentioned this about mosquitoes, but she also said it was some other types of creatures too that she doesn't see there on that side. But anyway, so whether it's our deceased family members, whether it's our higher selves, or random people living on that side, the stuff in your room is going to change. People are going to move things around. Things will be created. Maybe even stuff will materialize from your own thoughts. Like you've always wanted a big gold Buddha statue, and then that desire might even manifest it on that side. Or maybe just random someone else might be living in your bed. What's about the Little Red Riding Hood? Who was it? Like the bears? Like someone's been sleeping in my bed. Someone's been sleeping in my bed. Well, I hate to say it, but someone might be sleeping in your bed on that side, who's squatting and decided, hey, this is a cool house. And one way or another, it's the stuff inside is going to get moved and switched around, especially over the course of many years. And so, in a nutshell, that's why things look differently when you go out of body. It's a copy of this world, but that copy changes on its own and basically modifies itself, and so that's why things look differently. Now there's other theories as well. Sometimes if you're dreaming, then you might experience a version of something which isn't really the version that it normally is. That's the whole subject of dreams versus out-of-body experiences, which I've talked about elsewhere on this channel. You can go back through the archives. So there's different theories, different ideas, but this is my primary theory about this concept. So I guess that's it for this video. If you like this, then consider buying one of my books on Kindle or Amazon. Go to afterlifetopics.com and find the links. It's Afterlife and Beyond that came out last summer.